A relatively normal afternoon. The sun slowly rose over the hills on the horizon. It was quite a beautiful morning. Everything seemed to be waking up just now, including a little calico cat in his own cozy brick home. That cat's name was Catto Boi, the hero of the village. In the past, this cat has saved his town time and time again, without asking for nearly anything in return. Lots of cats depended on his brave and heroic blood to look out for their homes, especially since he once defeated a terrible beast and wielded the legendary shards. He received lots of praise and friendly greetings from villagers. This morning was like any other. Slowly waking up and blinking the sleep from his eyes, Catto looked around before sitting up out of bed, stretching like cats do. Yawning, Catto hopped out of bed and went into his kitchen, pouring and chowing on some store-bought kibble. He coughed a bit, chewing on the dry food. Pouring his leftovers back into the bag, Catto walked out of his kitchen and towards his front door, opening it and stepping into the fresh green hills outside. The sun shone down and reflected off his white fur. Hearing the birds chirping and starting to wake up, he sighed and started to walk along. However, he stopped when he saw a cat barreling towards his house. Catto. The cat tripped and dropped the pile of what he was carrying. Catto was quick to react, catching the biscuits in his paws. Carefully, he sat them down on the ground and helped his friend up. "You've gotta be more careful, big boy." "I know. I was just hurrying over. I was gonna be late meeting up for our morning picnic." "Oh, don't sweat it. I just woke up a few minutes ago." "Oh, so I'm the irresponsible one?" Big Boy joked. Big Boy was Catto's absolute best friend. Since the day they met, when they were just kittens, and now into adulthood, they were inseparable. Every now and again they'd get annoyed at each other, but they'd end up making up in the end over a few cat biscuits and tea. The picnic site should already be there. I set it up earlier then went back to sleep. Big Boy started to walk beside Catto. "Of course you did. What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Nothing. By the way, someone new in town was asking about you." "Oh, who's?" "That would be me," a high-pitched voice shouted from a distance. A Siamese ragdoll cat with a sword strapped to her back came running toward the pair. Catto went from curious to disappointed immediately. The cat leapt and trapped Catto in a hug. Catto sighed. "Hi Fluffy. Well, that's no way to greet your distant cousin, is it?" "Whoa, you guys are cousins?" Big Boy perked up. "Yep. He forgot. Catto's distant cousin Fluffy was coming to visit this week." Catto patted her on the back before she let go. "What's with the sword?" "Oh, this." She unsheathed it and held it up towards the sky, letting it shimmer. "It washed up on the beach near my house. It was too pretty. I had to take it." "Be careful with that." "I have been. Actually, I've been doing good with it. I've been defending my own town from some wicked thieves that have been trying to rob us. This dandy sword scares them off easy." Fluffy attached the sword back to her back. As much as she acted like it, Fluffy didn't know the first thing about adventure and fighting evil. She thought, with just the wave of a piece of metal, she could take care of anything. Catto knew a lot more. It took a lot of courage and bravery to be heroic. It also took humility. That was definitely something she didn't have. "Your cousin is pretty cool, Catto." Catto was about to speak up, but Fluffy interrupted him. "You aren't too bad yourself." What's your name?" "Big Boy, Catto's friend." "Well, it's great to meet you." They shook paws. "Catto, you didn't tell me you had such handsome friends." "Or, shucks." Big Boy chuckled a little. That was another thing Catto despised about her. She flattered a lot of cats very easily. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, me and Big Boy were just on our way to our picnic. We should get going. "Alrighty." Fluffy smiled. "You two have fun. I'll just be hanging around." She skipped off. "You don't seem happy about her. What's up with that?" Big Boy questioned as they started to walk again. "She isn't what she makes herself out to be. Fluffy is bratty, to put it in simpler terms." "Huh. I'll keep that in mind then." Catto had lots to say about her. However, right now, he decided to keep his mouth shut. It was the better option. Right now, he brushed the situation off and continued with Big Boy to the picnic they had planned. It was just outside of town. The blanket was laid out neatly on the grass, being held down by a few clips to make sure it didn't blow away. 2 water bottles laid on each side for the 2 cats. Big Boi laid the biscuits he was carrying down onto the clean blanket and sat down himself, almost immediately grabbing and eating one. Already hungry, huh? Are you not? Actually, I am. He grabbed one as well, sitting down. Catching up with Big Boi was nice to do, especially on a nice day like this. It wasn't too hot, there weren't many bugs out, and there wasn't anything loud interrupting their time together. I polished all my pearls recently, wanna see? So wait. How did you carry those pearls along with your biscuits? I got an FD little bag to carry them in specifically. Here. Reaching a paw into his extra fluffy fur, he uncovered a small pack full of pearls. Zipping it open, he laid it out and showed them to Catto. They were probably the shiniest he'd seen in a while. They glimmered and refracted from the light from the sun, making little rainbow reflections. Whoa. I know, right? That new cleaner I bought really came in handy. Zipping them back up, he hid the pack back in his fur, only taking one back out for Catto to hold. They look so much better when all the dirt is washed off them. Yeah. Thankfully, that shouldn't be happening anymore. Unless I lose my pack. If that's the case, it'll be easier for me because. In that moment, an arrow shot right past the faces of the 2 cats. What the Catto looked past Big Boi to see other cats with bows and arrows. Carefully handing the pearl he was holding back to Big Boi, he squinted to get a better look when suddenly the cats came charging towards them. Catto drew his claws, but they had swords. Charging right at them, they hit him and knocked him over. Right here, Captain. I smell the treasure. It's coming from that cat. The big one. Hey, let go of me. Catto sat up. A grey cat with a bandana, red eyes, and a compass around her neck, had Big Boi by the scruff. Next to her was a black cat with golden eyes and a captain's outfit. Pirates? Well, Jewel, look at the beauty he's holding. The captain remarked. The grey cat's name was apparently Jewel. The captain snatched the pearl out of Big Boi's paws with noticeable force. He held it up to the sun and watched it glimmer in awe. That made Catto mad as he bounced back up. Hey, you better hand that back over right now. He drew his claws again. Jewel looked over at him. Captain, look, we got a pussycat. She teased. Sorry, landlubber, but this is our treasure now. Plus whatever we can scavenge out of your little town. Catto's fur raised. No way they could steal from the village. And, we'll be taking your friend here too. He seems like a valuable treasure finder and polisher. They ran off, Jewel dragging Big Boi behind her like a ragdoll. Catto, yelp. Big Boi yelled back. Big Boi. Catto tried to chase after them, but they were way too quick to catch up to. He would kept running, but then he remembered the village. The village. They're raiding it. He started running back to it. The scene once he arrived wasn't pleasant. Many cats were trying to fend off home invaders. Many pirate cats were running off with valuable objects. Catto ran as fast as he could, swiping at the pirates with his claws. Any objects he could save, he did, albeit not very many. They escaped very easy and left the village in a hurry. Catto returned some of the objects to the respective cats once it all settled down. They all soon gathered around him, asking him questions and crying. Okay, guys, please. He tried to hush them, which mostly worked. Look, I'll go after them and get everything back. Please don't worry. For now, help your fellow village members. I'll be off. They all cheered as Catto started to go off on his adventure. Off on another adventure. Catto's heart raced through his chest, feeling the wind on his fur. He leapt from flying platform to flying platform, trying to catch up to those darn pirates. They still had Big Boi. He couldn't let them get away. From what he knew of the land, they were headed straight for the beach, most likely to sail away. The soft grass cushioned each fall he took, swiping forward through enemies. Eventually, he stumbled across something shiny at the end of the open fields. A pearl. It had to be Big Boi's. He turned it around in his paws. An arrow was drawn on it. It pointed to the huge jungle up ahead. He's been leaving a trail. Catto smiled. He knew Big Boi was pretty clever, even when he kept on dropping pearls. Storing it away, Catto continued into the thick brush. The first thing about the jungle was that there were incredibly thick leaves and bushes, so navigating the whole thing was a pain. It took multiple swipes with his claws to even break one vine. he resorted to just leaping over them. He was an agile cat, after all. Leaping onto a large vine, he swung over a huge pit with a vine and landed successfully on the other side. He smirked and continued forward. That smirk lasted until he heard small squeaks coming from the trees. He looked around, keeping his claws drawn. Suddenly, something flew down and swiped at him. Ag. What the? Catto looked up. Brown jungle bats were looking down at him from the trees with viscous stares. Another flew down at him. Catto quickly jumped and swiped, taking it out with ease. Multiple more started to attack at once. Quickly, Catto ran, rebounded off the wall, and took out a row of bats all at once, careful to not fall into the pit behind him. The remaining bats hisses and dived at him. With quick thinking, Catto leapt up and let the bats dive into the pit instead. He ran past them and jumped onto a high place with a shiny pearl atop it. It pointed forward. Catto looked up, seeing the sunshine through the trees. Looking further, there was a sandy beach and crystal ocean up ahead. He could smell the salt up ahead and hear the crashing of the waves. He was close. Something called out. A dark silhouette jumped down in front of him, drawing a sword. The cat was scraggly and small. It had a similar figure to Hissy Boy, a small feisty cat he knew back in the village. The scratchy brown fur and yellow eyes glared at him, or just an eye, really. The other was covered by an eye patch. Oh great, more pirates. My name be Cyclops, here. My captain sent me here to stop ye and give ya a good beating while I'm at it. With how small you are. I doubt it. Catto taunted. Enough talk. Cyclops shouted, rushing forward and swinging his sword right at him. Catto swiftly dodged to the side, rebounding with a kick to the face. Cyclops got knocked back, slowing his fall by dragging his sword into the ground. Pulling the sword out, he hissed and went back for another strike, hitting Catto straight on. He meowed in pain, trying to think of a good strategy. Suddenly, a good idea hit him. Catto ran and jumped up one of the trees, climbing it. Once he reached a good point, he jumped and dove right for Cyclops. It hit hard. Cyclops tumbled to the ground and dropped his sword. Catto was quickly coming after him, so instead he used his claws and got up. They traded a few swipes before Cyclops stopped fighting, seemingly out of breath. Catto looked over him in triumph as he walked over to him, leaning down. Okay, now tell me, where did your crew take Big Boi? He rolled onto his back. They already sailed off with the landlubber, across the seas. HMPH. Not on my watch. Catto then ran off, to try and follow them into the sea. Crystal clear seas. Catto, of course, did not get very far, stopping at the edge of the water with his paws in the sand. A seemingly endless expanse of blue stretched out far in front of him. Waves rippled gently and arrived at shore. Right. How the heck am I gonna get past all this water? I can't swim that far. Catto started walking along the shoreline, trying to find anything to help him travel across the water. There was sand, and more sand, a few shells. Yeah, he wasn't going anywhere. He was stumped until he heard the voice of a cat. It didn't solve his problems at all, but it was very pretty. Having not much else to do, he followed it. It eventually led him to a rock with a cat singing atop it. Something willed him to get closer. The cat turned around, its pure red and beautiful eyes looking down at him. It looked like it was about to make a move before something else leapt onto the rock and scratched it. Its beautiful voice turned into a horrid screech as it leapt off the rock and into the water. The attacker followed and chased them away. That caused Catto to snap out of whatever trance he was in and look around. Damn, why did I walk all the way out here? He spotted something approaching him from the water. Two white cat ears peeled up from the water. It then peeked its eyes out. A pure, white fluffy cat seemed to watch him from the water. Oh, hello. What are you doing in the water? It sank itself down a bit. Whoa. Hey. It's okay. Catto leaned down and softened his voice a bit. She peeked her head out a bit more to greet him. Maybe we should get you out of the water, miss. He was interrupted by a fishtail coming out of the water behind her. Oh. That's why she was in the water. Catto looked in, or as she shook it around a bit, before letting it flop back down into the water. Yo, are you a mercat? She shook her head yes. She seemed to be examining him back, morbid curiosity pulling her out of the water. It hadn't seemed like she saw normal cats very often. The mercat was more curious about Catto's own tale. It was very strange to her. Catto attempted to speak despite being at a loss for words. The cat tilted her head. Sorry, what's your name? She stared at him. Name. She kept blankly staring. Do you talk? She shook her head no. Oh. Charades. She nodded, thinking for a moment. Suddenly, she spotted the pearls in his pocket. She pointed to them. What? Oh, the pearls? She nodded and then pointed to herself. Is your name Pearl? Pearl nodded rapidly, swimming around a bit before returning. I see. I'm Catto Boi. And if you don't mind me asking, why did you chase off that other cat? Pearl took a moment to think before writing her message in the sand. Siren equals mean. So that's why he walked all the way over here. That was no ordinary cat. Admittedly, that singing had made him feel tired. Oh, well, thank you for saving me. But, I gotta find a way to get across this sea. Say, have you seen any pirates around here? Pearl shook and dove back under the water. Looks like she was afraid of them too. Whoa. Sorry. The only reason I'm asking is because they catnapped my best friend. He dropped his pearls in a path to help me follow him, but I don't know if those pearls will stay afloat in the water. She nodded in understanding. Right then, her face lit up with an idea. Pearl grabbed one of Catto's paws and began to gently tug him, guiding him toward the water. What are you doing? With one forceful tug, she dragged him into the water. Catto started holding his breath, squeezing his eyes shut. That was until Pearl placed an air bubble over his head, which let him breathe freely. Opening his eyes, he looked at Pearl as she wrote something in the sand. Good at finding pearls. I can help and swim. She did swim incredibly fast. Maybe they'd be able to catch up if Pearl swam him across to the next island. Well, okay. Lead the way. Pearl grabbed him by the paw and started to swim. The island that they were at, Catto's home, quickly faded from view. After a few more seconds of rapid swimming, Pearl stopped and looked down. Letting go of Catto, she swam down and dug into the sand with her paws, eventually finding a pearl with an arrow on it. She quickly swam back up and handed the pearl to Catto. Yes, this is it. It points ahead and to the left. Brushing it off, he quickly pocketed the pearl 3/10. Understanding the directions, Pearl held on to Catto and started swimming again. The ocean was quite beautiful. Catto watched as the fish rushed past him. It reminded him of home and Big Boi's home-cooked fish dishes. He could practically smell them from here. Eventually, these waters started to strangely deteriorate. They became murky and overgrown with sea plants. They arrived at shore. Catto crawled onto the gray sand and looked back down at Pearl. Woo. Thank you for the ride. Are you sure this is the right place? Pearl looked around and simply shrugged. She didn't seem to like this place. Well, how about you stay around here and I'll come back if I don't find anything. She nodded. It seemed that saying he'd come back soon soothed her nerves a bit. Well, if that's the case, I'll be back. Standing up and shaking the water and sand off himself, Catto rushed forward into the dim, wilting jungle. The tropical / all the natural fauna and flora in this place seemed to be dead. Many trees looked like they would fall over at any given moment if someone simply looked at them the wrong way. There were no noises besides the more violent waves crashing against the shores, and even those faded the further he walked. It was incredibly uneasy. A few leaves fell from the trees and landed on the ground. Wind was the only thing that animated the corpses on the plants that were somehow still attached to the ground. Well, isn't this place fun? Catto commented to himself sarcastically, trying to lighten the mood. It worked for a moment before he saw one of the tree trunks stained with crimson. Even if it was only a few drops, it made him want to turn around. Well, now. I think Pearl and I can find another place to look. He quickly turned around and started to book it back to the shore. As he ran, he cold sworn he heard the prancing of another, bigger, more wild creature. It only made him run faster. Finally arriving back at the shore, he yelled, Pearl, Pearl, I'm done with this place, and I'm sure you are too. Come pick me up. Let's go. The waters were still. Catto cold sworn they weren't this red before. Seeing as Pearl had supposedly swam off somewhere, Catto shivered and walked hesitantly back into the jungle. He passed the trunk with blood again. Catto swore there was less last time. Ignoring it, he marched forwards. Funnily enough, the more he walked, the more the jungle seemed to come alive. The flora became greener. He started hearing the calls of birds. It was almost disturbing how fast the scenery changed. The trees opened up and revealed the sun. A cat was standing in the grass a few feet ahead. Squinting his eyes, Catto made it out to be Big Boi. Big Boi. His expression spread into a smile. He turned around. Catto. He ran to him and embraced him. Letting go of their hug, Catto looked at him with curiosity. Wait, it's great you're free and all, but how did you manage to escape the pirates? Oh. Some creature attacked the crew. I got away in the fray. I think they're still fighting it, so we shouldn't intervene. Well, he had heard a creature earlier. Maybe that's what it was. He didn't think about it too much. Well, that's good, I guess. There's just one problem. We're sort of stranded here. What do you mean? Izzy, the way I got here is kinda gone. Oh, maybe we could go find and steal a boat from the... No. They're probably still dealing with the creature. It's probably not safe. Then what do? I guess we stay and wait. That they did. Days and days passed by. The jungle deteriorated around them and soon ran out of natural food sources. Days faded into weeks and weeks faded into months. No one came for them. They doubted anyone even remembered them. It started to rain. The water extinguished their fire. Shivering, they gathered together under a dead tree and huddled for warmth. Do you think we could swim home? Catto shivered from the cold and shuddered from hunger. In this state? No. I'm so hungry. Oh really? You're hungry? I gave you the last piece of food we have and you're hungry? That doesn't change the fact I haven't eaten for days. Try weeks. Big Boi smiled. But you know, there's still one source of food left. What? Backing up, Big Boi slashed Catto right through the chest with his claws. Blood seeped through his fur and fell to the floor. Catto gasped and tried to scream, but the pain rendered him soundless as he fell. Big Boi, you aren't. I'm starving, Catto. And then he dug his teeth into his flesh, 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 flesh. Flesh, flesh, flesh. No, that's not how it happened. What do you mean? You promised. Don't go back on our deal now, or I'll kill myself now, so we can start over. This is not how it happened. Put them back. Fine. Izzy, the way I got here is kinda gone. Oh, maybe we could go find and steal a boat from the... No. They're probably still dealing with the creature. It's probably not safe. Then what do? There's a way back home through the jungle, silly. What? How? Come on. Big Boi grabbed one of Catto's paws and dragged him into the thicker bramble of the forest. Somehow, they ended up back home. The same village. It was night now for some reason. No one was outside. All the houses were dark. Seems like everyone was asleep. Wow. We sure spent a long time out there. I'm exhausted. Time to head home for a nap. Big Boi stretched. Right. Home. It didn't feel like home. It was cold and the air was damp. Catto Boi and Big Boi walked side by side through the silent town. They continued until they reached Big Boi's house, to which Big Boi turned and started to walk in. Well, thanks for coming for me, Catto. You should probably go home and get some rest. Actually, weird question, but can I stay over? For some reason I'm getting really shaky and nervous, and I don't think I feel safe being alone. He felt his burning chest. His heart was pretty much pounding out of it. It burned. Maybe having a friend nearby would help. Sorry. No. I'm gonna be busy with things, so my house will be a mess. Please. I really don't care how your house looks. I really have to go inside. Go home and get some rest. You're probably just stressed about all this. You'll probably feel better after a good sleep. Big Boi opened his door, entered, and then slammed it shut. A lock clicked. Catto was left just standing there, alone in the dark. Why did he feel like this?